What do you mean the weekends are derailing my progress? If you've noticed that you have no problem following a meal plan, way of eating, or a workout routine Monday through Thursday, but once Friday and the weekend come, the whole thing goes bananas, you're not alone. So let's talk about it. The question first is, how do I stop eating well Monday through Thursday and blowing it on the weekend? How do we approach this? The first piece, I think, comes with more recognition and questions. You're recognizing the pattern, which is a big thing. What happens in that window of time that contributes to the weekend changes? Reflecting back on that statement or that question, during the week is crazy. It should be crazy controlled. During the week should be more controlled, as you will notice, or during more or less the work week, I guess. So your specific work week. So that might not be Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday. It could be random days intermixed. The way that I've likened this and become to understand it more over the years is it's usually involved with work. When you are working, you're probably more regimented. And in those instances, you're finding that you're eating differently. And then the weekend comes and then things are freed up and then it all just blows up. That's what I've seen. That is not always true for everybody. I've seen situations that are completely contradictory to that as well. But on the whole, I've noticed that more times than not be the case. Regimented, not regimented. So when it comes to like, how do we approach this? We have to recognize well, first and foremost, what are the things going on around that you're noticing on the week and on the weekend that those things occur? Is it a stress-related response? Is it because, like I said a second ago, you're more regimented, so those things are easier to navigate? Are there if you got kids, are you running them around all the time? So you're around all these things and you're freaking out and stressed and chaos. So those are the results, is that you just eat wildly and not eat wild, or more controlled. Those questions can elaborate and those questions can lengthen because of your responses. So just keep in mind, this question opens up more pathways to different solutions, different responses. But I'm just gonna take it under the assumption that Monday through Thursday, you're fine. It's mostly just stress related, and we'll talk about that more. And then the weekend, everything goes crazy. So I would say the first way to approach this question or this concept when it comes to nutrition is, if you notice during the week these things are going well, how can I replicate that in the weekend? Meaning that when you answer that question, you might find out that because of what you're doing during the week fosters you eating a little bit better, or maybe even just more mindfully. How do I recreate that in the weekend? The other way to navigate this too is, what kind of things do you want to go into the weekend looking like? Meaning, if you know going into the weekend it's going to be a little bit crazy, how do you visualize approaching that in a way that fosters success? Meaning, if I'm going to be going out for sports with the kids, or I'm going to be going out to do these things, or I have a stair climb, I'm not looking at you by any means, Anne, on Sunday that's coming up very, very soon, in 2 days specifically. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you know these things are happening, how do you prepare for them? What do you plan on things looking like amidst that stuff going down? That's the ultimate way to approach all this stuff, is planning. So the whole concept with this piece is, first off, planning. The more you can plan and prep these things, the better off you're going to be. Let's say for those that are more spontaneous, which over the years I have become less spontaneous and then have had to adapt into more spontaneous. My mind's a whole crap show sometimes. Let's say you're more spontaneous. What do? A simple reflection in the moment can be helpful. Let that sink in for a second. If you go places, if you're going to order out, if you're going to go to the store, if you're going to go have fun at a restaurant, be in that moment actively as best as you possibly can. Look at the menu. Ask yourself what kind of things you're cool with. Ask what kind of things that you would go through and be perfectly reasonable with. The biggest thing that I've heard have a massive impact for people is in the long term of, if you're having a meal, can you leave that meal feeling zero regret, feeling zero negative response to any capacity, whatever that might mean for you? Can you leave it well? If your answer is, yeah, I can leave this well having this thing, it's not going to derail me to any capacity at all, great. If your response is the opposite, where you're like, I'm going to beat myself up with this, okay, then what would cause you to not beat yourself up? Because clearly it's not what you wanted to do in that moment. what's the next right move? What's the next best move? How can you approach this slightly differently while still giving yourself that allowance of, I'm going to do this thing? Because the last thing we want, just like the context said earlier, we don't want to restrict, because that's not real life, at least to the capacity that I'm imagining this is going down. We don't want to heavily restrict things. There's going to be some level of restriction, but we don't want to be like, can't have this. We're not doing this at all. We don't want that. We want to figure out, how can I make this work? And what's the best right way for me to do that? It's a great question. I feel like I do this more often than I'd like to admit. Most people do, to be completely fair. Most of us do this. That's why I thought this question was really good too. I was like, yeah, 100%. And a lot of times too, in like the tracking context that I've heard for people, like for those that like to track food or take pictures of food, or like whatever your tracking method of nutrition monitoring is, the way that I've practiced this myself and have heard this work well is track through the week and or the weekend and ditch the other time. Meaning, like for myself, the way that I've gone through it is I'll track during the week. And usually I don't go every single week of tracking. Usually the way that I do it is like once a month or twice a month as a week-long basis, I will track, not the rest of the time. Because I don't want to. I don't want to be reliant on my stuff, but I do want to check in to see like, how am I doing with these things? So 1 week out of the month, I will track. If that's the case, I'll track for the whole week. If it's more of a long-term practice because I'm working on something specific, then it might be instead, I'll track through the week, not the weekend. Because in my head, the way that I apply that, which give me your pushback, give me your context on this for you, is during the week, I want to stay relatively in this line of understanding with where I'm actually at, because there's all crazy shit going on left and right. The weekend, I feel like I can actually be, for me, more on top of it without needing to track, because I don't have 1,000 different things going on. It's like one thing with many different avenues rather than a bunch of things with many different avenues. So for me, the weekend is the easiest time to say, I'm not going to track here. That might be different for you. So you kind of just have to find what is your tendency, what are your patterns, what is your life allowance that gives you these opportunities, more or less, to evaluate this stuff. If your idea is that the routine of your Monday through Thursday evening helps you stay more managed, more on top of things, you're more aware of those things, then coming up with maybe not the same, but a similar concept of routine on the weekend could be beneficial. But it all comes back to practice. Test, retest, test, retest. If we have to hypothesize this idea of, I think this would be a really cool concept, it's worked for me during the week, let's apply it on the weekend, all we're doing is taking a hypothesis, testing it, seeing if it goes, reevaluating it, testing it again. There is no specific one best way to do any of this, as we've described many times together, as we've all talked about many times individually together, you and I, about all this stuff. And the beauty of it is there does not have to be one right way. And even though you might find a way that works for you today, this month, this year, next month, next year, and the next couple, all this could change dramatically. But the cool piece is it's not that you're changing the foundations, it's that you're changing the application, because the foundation applies no matter what. That's why we spend so much time talking about the foundational practices of nutrition, of movement, of just mental awareness and practice with yourself. This is why we have to practice this foundational work, because that will never change. How we apply it does change. Because let's take as a house as an example. If your foundation is there, you don't change your foundation when your house is built. That would be horribly dangerous and damaging. Same thing is true with this. Lay a very solid, grounded foundation upon things that are real, factual, proven evidence, and then go from there. Your foundation has to be rooted in something. If your foundation is rooted in hypotheticals, in things that influencers say that's based on mostly nothing except for maybe anecdotal experience at best and just random crap, that's not helpful. We have to find what actually creates that solid foundation, build the house, your habits, your actions, your goals, everything in between, build that house on that solid foundation, and the rest stays together. But it's just about finding those things, practicing them, putting into action all those different things, and saying, hey, I'm okay with this part ebbing and flowing, because that foundation is set. I know what I'm doing. I can feel confident in my choices from this point forward, and then I adjust. You got a question for the next Q&A? Drop it in the comments. If you want deeper support, consider subscribing or joining our coaching community where we host multiple live calls every week. The link's in the description. And if this helped you in any way, please share it with someone who's also working on their health too. Now remember to stay active, eat mindfully, think positive thoughts, and let's get after it.